First week of high school football, very wet, Malcolm.
Absolutely. I still got some water in my shoes.
Yeah, my hat, my Quicksilver brim hat, still wet.
Notebook too?
Oh, the notebook, yeah. Nice. Rest in peace. So, because of that, some teams decided to play Monday instead of Friday. And for the ones who played Friday in the precipitation, there was this. I saw you and him fumbling in the rain. You were losing the ball, and I never want to see it again. With apologies to Juice, let's squeeze out another show.
The best coverage of high school and college athletics in Northeast North Carolina begins now. This is NENC Sports Radio Show on WRVS 89.9.
Said we aren't going anywhere. Maybe we should after some of the singing.
Last week whispering, now you're bringing out the solos.
Oh, I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. I'm not singing that one. We're not going anywhere at least until the season ends, May of 2017. We're going to stay on each week. So let's get talking some sports in the NENC. Episode 2, Season 3 of the show. Owen Hassel, sports editor of the Daily Advance here, alongside Advance sports writer Malcolm Shields. Malcolm, it only makes us look so much better when we have guests such as the one I'm about to introduce. He's the host of Talking Sports of Gaddis Hodges, the play-by-play voice of Hertford County football and Show on Athletics. We've had him on the show many times. Learn something new every time. That's why we dub him the NENC Encyclopedia. It's Gaddis Hodges. Gaddis, how many seasons now for you in the booth?
24 for Hertford County.
24 for Hertford County. How many for Chowan?
I believe it's 17. I believe that's correct.
Right.
As a play-by-play. I've been doing games off and on at Chowan since 86.
Wow. And you remained dry last Friday, correct?
We did, but we were close to being wet. Matter of fact, when I arrived at Gates County High School about 6 o'clock, I got about 2 miles on the west of Gates County and ran through a pretty hard rainstorm, and it rained pretty heavily for about 15 and 20 minutes at Gates County, and things cleared off real nicely, and we were able to get the game in. Field conditions were great at Gates County High School. It feels a little bit flat, doesn't have any crown to it at all, but, we've had such good grass growing summer, I guess you could say, with so much rain and hot weather. The surface was great and didn't have any slip as doing the game, and we got everything in well.
That's perfect. A lot of games still got played Friday, so weather be danged when it came to the first week of the season. Of course, we'll be talking with Gaddis throughout the show, but first, for more on Northeastern North Carolina sports, follow us on Twitter. Also use the hashtag NENC Sports to keep the discussion rolling. You can follow us at NENC Sports. Then for me, I'm at ONOBX. Malcolm?
And Malcolm_Shields.
And there's more ways to stay involved with sports in Northeastern North Carolina in the form of a blog. Go to nencsports.wordpress.com for tidbits that aren't always in the Daily Advance, plus interviews and video from various Northeastern North Carolina games. Well, who dominated in Week 1 football? Quite a few teams.
Yep.
We'll let you know after this.
Like our Facebook page and give us your questions and comments. Find us at facebook.com/NENC Sports.
Elizabeth City State University presents the Chancellor's Color Run. Join us on September 10th for a 5K run walk for all ages. Color stations throughout the campus will splash you with a refreshing burst of color. Family activities will continue at Roebuck Stadium. Support good health and fitness with the ECSU Chancellor's Color Run. Saturday, September 10th on the campus of ECSU. All proceeds to benefit ECSU scholarships. Register today online at ecsu.edu.
This is Edenton coach Paul Hoggart, and you're listening to NENC Sports Radio Show on WRVS 89.9.
About those Monday games that were postponed, of course, from Friday, Currituck and Pasquotank did not forget last season. Both put it on opponents who thrashed them in 2015. The Knights thumped Manio 42-2 on the strength of 5 Ryan Edwards touchdown passes. He also ran for one. And the Panthers throttled Camden 61-26. I want to talk about the boss of the week. Not Bruce Springsteen. He's the boss forever. Just the boss of the week. Chris McGee. Coach Chris McGee. Last year, he was leading Camden. We all predicted Pasquotank, all the talent that was coming back for the Panthers. This was the Panthers' year to break through, be a top 3 in the conference, Northeastern Coastal Conference, and do well. And we thought Pasquotank would beat the Bruins by a healthy margin. Instead, he turned the tables, had Camden beat Pasquotank 61-23. We're all going, oh my gosh. Marcus Joyner moonwalking in the end zone, everything we've talked about in the past. So then he takes the Pasquotank job in May. First game at Camden. Oh, great. I have to go there first. The whole controversy with Scott Jones Field as well. Scott Jones coming back to coach. There's so many different things wrapped around this game. He just goes there with the Panthers and wins by almost the exact same score. Yep. Malcolm, boss?
Boss.
Right?
Capital B.
Right. Legit boss.
Yes. Yes.
With apologies to Sasha Banks, the wrestler, the legit NENC boss is Chris McGee. Again, it's early. Do we buy or sell the Panthers? And I want to bring you into this too, Gaddis Hodges. Maybe get your thoughts first. Buy or sell the Pasquotank Panthers after this one?
You have to buy. Like I said, Chris McGee is, you could kind of feel that enthusiasm at the media conference back in early August, late July. You could kind of hear from the players kind of a new culture, a new kind of wave of enthusiasm going through that Pasquotank locker room on that football field, and man, it showed out on Monday night. And I think they could very well be the surprise of the Northeastern Coastal Conference.
Malcolm, you were at the game. Go ahead.
I think the biggest thing that stood out to me about Pasquotank, we always know about Marcus Cowell, but defensively, those guys were very disciplined. They did break some big runs, but after the big run by Bunton, they were really locked in, and Camden didn't really get going until they put Brandon Underwood in at quarterback late in the third quarter, but it was a very solid performance defensively. That stood out to me by Pasquotank.
Does that make up Scott Jones's mind about maybe I need to go with the guy who's been under center the last 2 years and Brandon Underwood? I've learned some things here going into Curry Tuck on Friday. Does that make up his mind there?
Well, this is the thing. Does he want to just win right now, or does he want to go through the lumps with J.R. Williams? I don't think J.R. was particularly terrible, but with Brandon's experience, it clearly showed in that third quarter when he came in, he brought a lot of energy. You got to think that at this point, he's probably going to have to rotate both of those guys in at quarterback. And
Coach Jones was telling me throughout the summer that it's nice in a sense to have a quarterback learning what would be a new system for J.R. Williams, who's going to be back for another year.
Right.
Because that guy is still with you. And with Brandon Underwood's a senior. At the same time, you just said it. He knows what to do. Probably better than anybody else on that team as far as playing quarterback. Little dilemma. Maybe not such a bad problem.
No, I mean he's got a good problem there, but like Coach said, Brandon Underwood was a prototypical type of quarterback for that type of system that he runs. So with the non-conference still going on, you still have a few games left. This gives him a little bit more time to kind of figure it out for JR's perspective. And once you get into Coastal 10 play, maybe the Camden can get on the roll.
And I bought Pasquotank so much last year because of just talent in different positions. The idea that they look great in the team photo type of thing. But it again came down to that line. And just, oh my gosh, it broke down for them so many times. And I just didn't want to go with them last week. That's just why I was like, I'm going to give a slight edge to Camden just because until I see something or I hear that the discipline is there to a certain degree, I can't. I just can't. And it sounds like that question was answered.
Yeah, on the defensive side. But offensively, I mean, you got to give Coach McGee credit. I mean, last year was a spread offense and throw it around and, make Jamon, make the big pass play. But they kept the game plan real simple, run the football out of the I formation, maybe have Avion James do an option with Cowell, and they made it really simple. And, like Coach always said, get the ball in your playmaker's hand. And Marcus Cowell, first play of the game offensively for Pasquotank, 73 yards house. So put the ball in your playmaker's hand and keep it simple, and that's what they did on offense. And they reap the benefits.
Yeah, because Avion James is not going to hurl the ball 40, 50 yards like Jamon Oatman, but he doesn't have to. And they didn't have to last year. Of course, that's last year. You can't turn back the clock. But, yeah, Coach McGee putting the guys in the best positions to win. That's what you're supposed to do. So good job for Pasquotank in week 1, of course. What do you make of this large margin of victory for Currituck? They haven't beaten Manio like this in like 15 years or something. And I understand Manio and Coach Eddie Twine's a little down this year. They lost a few talents from last year, but still 42-2. I don't. Let's get Gaddis back on this. 42-2. Was that the surprise score in the area for you?
Yeah, pretty much so. I'm kind of like you. I was leaning Camden over Pasquotank last week, but I did not see Currituck hanging 42 on Manio. Like I said, Manio's a little bit down, but boy, nobody works any harder than John Wheeler does in the summertime. You know, he gets his kids so much exposure. They're going to this camp, that camp. He had them ready to play, and boy, Ryan, it was just bite sight, throwing 5 touchdown passes. And well, you got to think maybe Currituck's back on the road to the right direction again this year after dropping off a little bit last year. But man, I did not see that 40-point win coming at all.
And with Currituck, it seems to be in stages. All of a sudden, they have a couple of down years, and then they get the 1 year with a ton of seniors, and they have a great year, 8-9 wins. Remember a few years back, guys like Tyler Schuster and Daquan Foreman and Nigel Powell. Currituck goes from being like nearly last in the conference to a share of the conference championship and moving on to the 3rd round of the state playoffs. So it's maybe this is that year because Currituck's got a ton of seniors again. Ryan Edwards, his 3rd year at starting quarterback. You got Isaiah McCarraher, you got Brian Meredith, Trey Burton. I mean, there are a lot of good skill guys in there. It's just it's week 1. We have to keep reminding ourselves of this, right? Yep. It's week 1, but you are excited to see teams like Pasquotank and Currituck, who struggled so much last year, get a little taste of success early. Right. And it's amazing how that one game with these young kids, it gets in their head, hey, we can do something here. And then we play a much better opponent. We hang in, get a victory, and it can snowball. A couple years back with that team I mentioned with Schuster and Powell, they had to escape Manio with a win. And people went, oh, my gosh, this could be tough, and won it in the last second. Next couple games, who knows? But then Currituck they lost to Wilson Hunt, I think lost to Edenton, and that was it for the regular season. Currituck's the last team to beat Northeastern in the conference. Make that little fact out there for the fans in Barco. Last team to beat Northeastern in a Northeastern Coastal Conference game. So that's Monday. Friday, of course, we had teams playing in the rain. We're not bothered by it. Hertford County, Northeastern shut out Coastal 10 foes. Edenton won big as well. This was expected. I don't know. Hertford County, Gaddis, of course you were there. Hertford County and Gates. From what you saw of Gates, can Gates challenge in the Coastal 10?
I think so. They just had no offense at all against Hertford County. Had only 71 yards of total offense the entire game. Just had trouble moving the football. Javon Riddick's back as a sophomore quarterback. He quarterbacked all 11 games a year ago as a freshman. They lost Mark Ricks, a running back who was over 1,000 yards a year ago. They've yet to kind of find that niche to replace him. But I think they can finish that upper echelon of that Coastal 10. Maybe it's in the top 3. But Matt Biggie's going to get this team figured out and get them turned around. I'm anxious to see how they'll play against Pasquotank this week, but they just had no offense at all against Hertford County last week.
And on the Hertford County side of things, we know about Jacory Roberson being a Wake Forest commit and just the amazing catches he made last year, but you got a new quarterback, is that correct?
They do. Lance Hunter, a young man who was a backup a year ago, threw only one pass. Of course, Christian Folsom, who's now at Shaw, threw for 3,100 yards and 34 touchdowns. I thought Hunter was okay at times. He was 9 of 21 interception, 155 yards, through 3 touchdown passes. But he missed some opportunities, which is not uncommon in your first game of the season. And obviously it's your first game as a starter. But Hertford County's bugaboo last week was the penalty flag. He had 17 flags for 145 yards. Several holding calls, several unsportsmanlike conducts late in that game that was really uncalled for. They've got some work to do, and like most teams do after the first game. But, they had some bright spots, but they did not really dominate that game as much as the score would sound. It was a 14-0 game with 8 minutes left.
Yeah. And that's what sticks out to me that makes me believe that the Coastal 10 as a whole might be down this year because Northeastern beating Plymouth, not a surprise, but 34-0. Plymouth hasn't been shut out since 2010. And that was against Walls Rose Hill in the playoffs, which a lot of teams have been shut out by Walls Rose Hill. So that long going with at least one score. And then at Northeastern, I know it's wet and those type of conditions, but both teams are playing in it. And I really thought that was going to favor Plymouth because Northeastern likes to throw the ball around. And Northeastern didn't have that good of a day passing. I think DeMar Sutton went about 5 for 15. Did have the one touchdown pass to Tyleik Overton, who ran most of the way for that. He just made one guy miss, and he was gone. And Plymouth kind of hung their heads early, which I was a little surprised at, too. Here's a defending 1A state champion. You're going to have a little bit of swagger coming off that, no matter who you've lost from the year before. And just they looked a bit down early. Northeastern put 14 on them relatively early, but Northeastern was fumbling the ball. 4 fumbles. Gave Plymouth some opportunities to maybe get one score before halftime and couldn't do it. And that's a credit to Ed Thornton and the Northeastern defense for holding back Plymouth on a couple of long drives the Vikings did have. But I'm putting all that in perspective because does that show a little chink in the armor? I think I'm saying that right. For Plymouth, if this is the year that someone could get Plymouth, I don't know if any of the other teams in the conference have that strength to do it. I was high on Gates before the year. I don't want to be too down on them after a loss to just a better Hertford County team. But if there's a team that could do it in the Coastal 10, who are y'all's picks?
Well, that's a tough question. I'm like you. The whole league could be down.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Manio obviously is down. Quimans with a great win over South Creek.
Yep, about to get to that. Yeah,
Quimans got it with the new coach there. I think Matt Biggie's team will get better as Gates goes along, and they have Plymouth the very final game of the year. So, but Plymouth's going to get better as well. But if anybody can challenge them, maybe it is Gates County. I'm not so sure, but I'm in agreement with you, and I think that league might be a little bit down from top to bottom.
And I think that might also give an opening. Maybe not to win the conference, but for Brookwomen's. Who would have ever thought Brookwomen's trail? And I had South Creek beating the pants out of Brookwomen's again. Mm-hmm. And here comes Aaron Burke having to lead the team basically in the last minute with Elvin James being forced to retire with the knee problems and down 21-6.
Correct.
All right. And then come back and win. Yeah. Wow, right? Wow.
Go back to the first quarter. Brookwomen's very patient, ran their offense, got on the board, 6-0 lead, and then ensuing kickoff, they run it back for a touchdown, and then the points started piling up for South Creek, and it's like, okay, this looks like this is the pattern that Brookwomen's had last year. And then the second half, they come out, they put the clamps down on that running game, and they hit a couple pass plays, one touchdown to Tyler Roundtree, and they ended up taking the lead. And when they needed to get stops late in the game, they got it. Their defensive backfield broke up passes. Roundtree was getting pressure on their quarterback, and that wasn't a Brookwomen's team that we've known and seen the past couple of years. And Coach Burke, after the game, gave a lot of credit to Marcus White, who was a former assistant coach at ECSU. He said that he got those kids together, made some adjustments, and they made the stops that they needed to do. So I mean, it was an eye opener.
Another way too early question to ask, but what the heck, I ask questions. That's part of my job. Mm-hmm. If Brookwomen's has a winning season this year, which they have not had, and I need to look it up. It hasn't been. Elvin James not had a winning season for Brookwomen's. They've made the playoffs each year, but as we know, 1A schools, almost everybody gets in. Mm-hmm. If Brookwomen's has a winning season this year, and that is possible, Aaron Burke is the interim guy right now. Let's say they not only have a winning season, they win a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Ooh. It's probably been 8 to 10 years since that's happened. Mm-hmm. Do you give Aaron Burke the nod as the head coach, guys?
I think you have to look at him very strongly. Guy stepped in a tough spot here. They win their first game. I know he's had some good kids coming back, but yeah, if they go that far and make the playoffs, though, and absolutely you got to give that guy a real strong look at that head position.
And the scheduling opens up for them because they play Plymouth last. They got Camden at Brookwomen's. We know what happened in that game last year when it had to be played on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And Brookwomen's very well could have won that game. DeJuan Williams blames himself to a certain degree with a fumble. Mm-hmm. If they beat Camden and Hertford, get through the Mattamuskeets, and this time Columbia looks like they're down. They lost to Mattamuskeet. Mm-hmm. Get through Columbia, which somehow they lost to last year. Creswell, Gates.
And I think they're at Gates this year. So I believe they have Gates, and then they have the bye, and then they have the Plymouth and Camden back-to-back.
Okay, so Plymouth's not last.
No, I think Columbia may be last.
That's right, it is last because they played Columbia last year. Yeah. But still, Plymouth's later in the year where they can gain confidence in some other games to get to that point. No confidence will be gained against Edenton this week. You see how I segue right into the Aces and what they did to Southwest Edgecombe. Wow. And I heard that Southwest Edgecombe had some injuries there in the second quarter. It was 13 all, and then just a flurry of Edenton points. I think we alluded to it last week. Keemon Bailey and Deshaun Hall. And then obviously you got a starter in Luke Hoggart at quarterback. That looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it definitely showed out in week one. But you got to give a lot of credit to that Edenton defense when they needed a big play to kind of get the momentum on their side. They got the scoop and score fumble by Kyrese Phelps. So, and Edenton health was good. It's going to be a good matchup here. This is going to be a little preview of what the conference is going to look like next year with Brookwomen's and Edenton.
Yes, it will. And wow, the Aces. You just hope they don't. I got my fingers crossed. You can't see it with the injuries. I feel like I'm talking. Yeah. We're doing a lot of good talking here. Yeah. And then something's going to, Paul Hogger's doing the same thing. He's doing whatever he can and say, hey, we got to be as healthy as possible. And let's just do the whole week by week talk. Because Edenton, once again, has a difficult non-conference schedule. After Brookwomen's, you've got Rocky Mount, 3A school. You got Booker T. Washington, and to Edenton's credit, won at Booker T. Washington in Virginia last year. And you got Plymouth. Those two schools do not like each other. They're pretty close in distance. Just go across the Sound. But I do think Edenton's got to be favored in at least two of those three games, and obviously favored against Brookwomen's. So they could go into conference play looking really good, maybe ranked in a few state polls. And here come the Aces. And a few more weeks after that, what is it, Northeastern? Did I hear that?
I think it's Hertford County. Yep, Hertford County.
Am I going too far ahead? It's Northeastern.
Yep.
Ooh, Northeastern. Edenton, Elizabeth City.
Yes.
It's going to be under the big lights. That game should be televised, people, but it's not, unfortunately. Wow. And this conference could be set up. I think the latest, there's a Time Warner Cable poll of all the teams in 2A ranked from best to worst. 3 Northeastern Coastal teams, Gaddis, in the top 12. You got Northeastern at 5, Hertford County 9, Edenton at 12. Is that a pretty good statement for the league?
Absolutely. And getting back to Edenton, I think the biggest key for Edenton Holmes is obviously the injuries are certainly key, but I think the biggest thing is Paul Hockard's second year. He's got his stamp within that program now. Had time to really work on it during the off season. The kids know what he wants. He had a young team a year ago, played a lot of sophomores. I look down and coaches don't like to look ahead, but it don't mean those of us at the media can't look ahead. But I'm looking at that Rocky Mount game the fourth week. Rocky Mount at Edenton, that should be fun to watch. Yeah. You talk about the Southwest Edgecombe team. They were 13-2 a year ago, played in the Eastern Finals, and had 6 players coming back on defense and 4 on offense. So the couple was certainly not bad at Southwest Edgecombe. And you go in there and hang 40 points on the Jonathan Cobb team, you got a pretty good football team. I picked Edenton to finish second in this league. doing our preseason picks. But I really like this Edenton team. I think they got a chance to make a lot of noise on the 2A level this year.
And for people who think that the Northeastern corner can't compete on a regular basis with teams outside of this corner, well, Southwest Edgecombe probably has a few stories to tell you. Back in 2014, Northeastern lay up the smack of down on Southwest Edgecombe in the playoffs. Obviously, Southwest Edgecombe left Edenton with a win, but that was a battle into the fourth quarter. And then this year, Edenton goes to Pine Tops and says, "Well, okay, we'll take that victory back. Give us that W." So Southwest Edgecombe 1-2 last 3 seasons against combined Northeastern and Edenton. Wow, first week, just we're ready for football. I don't know how else to put that. We got so much going on here that we almost forgot to do the best names of the NENC.
There we go. Nice.
This is becoming, I can say annual now because it's the second annual. It's becoming a tradition. I figured out a few names I found just picking around. There's probably a few more. Maybe I'll put those on Twitter later. But the best names of the NENC. Let's get started with Abe Todd from Camden Football. Nothing says Lincoln family biographer like Abe Todd.
Yes.
If the middle name's Lincoln, I'm going to die. I'm done. But you saw Abe Todd playing for Camden. He was making quite a few tackles.
Yeah, he's a tough little guy out there. He made a tackle on Avion James, and I think he had a couple of carries there late in the game. So tough kid right there.
Great name. Camden Soccer's Austin Byers. I'm going to stick with Camden. Safe to say when a teammate passes to him for a score, are they buying in? Or they're selling him the ball?
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't shake your head. Travion Freshwater from Northeastern Football. Because ain't nobody dope as he's just so fresh water, so clean. I had to get it in there. Worked. We got to have that remix done by Nixon 3000.
There you go.
Northeastern coach Ronald Nixon, we've joked on here a few times. He's a dead ringer for Andre 3000. Looks just like him.
Yeah.
He knows it, too. Come on, man. He knows it. He'll say that every time. Now we just need a player from either Hatteras, First Flight, or Manio with the last name of Saltwater.
There you go.
Yeah. Here's another one. Stanford Dantzler out of Brookwomen's Football. No, good and well, he's going, I'm gonna carve my own path. I'm going to Cal. Stanford Dantzler. From Curry Tuck Volleyball, we got Katie Slaughter. You can't take it easy on anybody with that name, Katie Slaughter. Is it overkill to use the headline, Slaughter Massacres Blocker with Bloody Kill? Katie Slaughter. Yeah. And we've got the 2 best named veterans from last year. Mm-hmm. They're connected this time. Can you believe this? Check this out. Last year's Jazz Hands Hansen. And that's from Manio football, of course. That's one of a few Redskins that graduated that I know Coach Eddie Twine would love to have back this year. And Dayon Mallory out of Brookwomen's. Dayon. Both are roommates this year while playing football at Fayetteville State. How about that?
Very nice. Very nice.
And those are going to be best named veterans once again. But that is our second annual best names of the NENC. How about you stick with us? We'll be right back with more Northeastern North Carolina athletics.
Keep this conversation going right now on our Facebook page. More NENC Sports Radio Show is coming up.
CIAA football action returns to the airways Saturday, September the 3rd, as the ECSU Mighty Vikings travel to Norfolk to take on the Spartans. Game time set for 6 p.m. It's the annual Labor Day Classic, ECSU versus Norfolk State. You don't want to miss it. Catch all the live action exclusively right here on your home for Viking football. It's 89.9 ECSU, as I, Randy Jones, voice of the Vikings, and Marquise Jones bring you all the live action. That's ECSU versus Norfolk State, September the 3rd. Pre-game show 5:45, kickoff at 6 p.m. Go Vikings!
Oh, we're playing around some with this second episode of the 3rd season. Malcolm Shields, Owen Hassel, and Gaddis Hodges with us. Always great to have. Gaddis is probably like the 5th or 6th time you've been on this show. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. You guys keep paying well. I'll keep coming back.
Yeah, I know. WRVS, I tell you what, that UNC system money.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
I agree.
Let's get to a little Shimon now.
Jump on, jump on, get on me, all right.
I got this letter. This is the mail. I think it was Monday. And of course, now I'm coming off good vibrations. I just got to see two of the original members of the Beach Boys perform in Newport News, Ryan Wilson and Al Jardine. I'm real excited. I'm still pumped up from the concert. So I get back into work. I lose my good vibrations with this letter. But I'm going to read it. It says, "Here is my question. Why is there so much focus on Camden football? There are other sports being played all over the area. Soccer, for instance. The soccer teams get little to no coverage by this paper, and those athletes should be recognized just as much as football. I suppose it's because soccer has little to no drama. The players put in hard work and play their hearts out just as hard as a football team. Soccer games have no threats of violence like football has. And there is no need for metal detectors to enter a soccer match. Coach Jones, that's Scott Jones, never gave a flip about soccer or any other sport except football. Once he, in quotes, retired, the soccer team finally got a scoreboard, but still are not allowed to step foot on his beloved, quote, gridiron. Come on, Daily Advance, we want to hear about the entire community, not just football. Signed, fed up with football." You know what I'm fed up with? I'm fed up with people who don't put their name at the end of a letter. Put your name on it. And actually, some of this is just straight lies. But the part that gets me is, and I guess I'm just being a staunch defender of Scott Jones, but it's because it's true what I'm going to say here. And he's saying Coach Jones never gave a flip about soccer or any other sport except football. Do we need to tell you that Scott Jones has coached basketball? He's coached softball. He's coached cheerleading. He's done all these things. He's driven the buses. He's done work on that soccer field. Come on now. I've seen him care about so many other people. You know what? Check out the online petition to get the field named after Scott Jones, which obviously didn't work. But so many people wrote on there, not about him as a football coach, but what he would do to inspire students just walk in the halls, or as a teacher, or talk to them if they were athletes in other sports that he would otherwise never interact with. He didn't have to do any of those things, and he does. Or I watched him line a practice field after practice, and you're thinking, okay, well, he's trying to get that done for football for the next day. He didn't have to do it right then. He could have done it the next morning. He did it right then because he saw the band practicing on the pavement next to the school. Said they need to go ahead and have that this time right now to practice on a practice field with lines to help them with their rotations, movement, however it goes. Like, none of us are saints here. But this is almost, to me, in a way, a person's plea to say, well, this person never did anything, and I'm just going to wrap it around being upset that I don't see a whole lot of soccer in the paper. Come on, Daily Advance. Come on, fed up with football? Man, come on now.
Jump on, jump on.
Malcolm, a little bit of history now for the NENC Sports Radio Show, now into the third season. Just the second episode of the third season, but already we try to get calls. Mm-hmm. We've been putting it out there on Twitter. Please call in, and we want to hear what you have to say. We got a caller. It actually happened.
Very nice.
I didn't call anybody to say please call in. It actually just happened. It worked that way. Somebody read the tweet and said, what the heck, I will give it a shot. So we're going to find out who this caller is. Caller, please identify yourself.
Chris Bell.
Oh my Lord, it's Chris Bell.
You know, I had to call in because, well, first off, I was a little excited being down here in Duplin County. And, you know, everybody's talking about how great Duplin County football is. Wallace Rose Hill, James Keenan, East Duplin. Heck, even North Duplin this year is expected to have a good year. And so, you know, me being from the northeastern part of the state, as y'all know, we always get the rap that things aren't as good in the northeastern part. And then we proceeded this week to go 5-0. The Northeastern Coastal Conference did, against some pretty formidable opponents. So I just wanted to call in and get your thoughts on the 5-0 week. A little brag time for the northeastern North Carolina part of the state. Even though, you know, I'm going to have to put it out there on Twitter that people are going to have to go listen to this in Duplin County so that, you know, they can understand what's going on. But really thought it was a good week for the NCC and the way that they played against, again, some pretty formidable opponents when you're looking back at the history of Eastern North Carolina football.
Yeah, 5-0 for the Northeastern Coastal Conference. Of course, this is Chris Bell. We always like to call him Little Sam Walker. So that would be at least the somewhat pride of Curry Tuck. That somewhat sounds bad, though, because you're just as pride.
I'll be second to Sam. That's fine.
Yeah, and just wanted to make sure people know the context of our caller. And Northeastern Coastal Conference 5-0. I want to say 5.5-0. I'm going to say 5.5 because First Flight led Dixon in the second quarter until just
Mother Nature. That
was torrential rains and thunderstorms, and I could understand that being first postponed and then eventually, okay, yeah, you got a long drive. I don't think we can play this game any other day, so we'll just call it off. And that was that. So 5.5-0 for the Northeastern Coastal Conference. A little bragging, that's not always a bad thing, but Malcolm, is there little other asterisks? I can't even say it right. To that 5-0, you mostly played 1A schools.
Yeah, I think that's just the one thing that kind of glares out. Pasquotank, obviously, with their win. That's probably the one caveat to it. But you got to look at Edenton. They went to Southwest Edgecombe, and in that second half, when they got that fumble return for a touchdown by Kyrese Phelps, that really turned the tide. On the other hand, Edgecombe was dealing with some injuries, but again, that's an impressive win for Edenton.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, I didn't mean to downplay it because last year that didn't happen.
Right.
Pasquotank didn't beat Camden last year. Edenton lost to Southwest Edgecombe last year. Had some L's in that first week. So yeah, back to your point, Chris, 5-0, 5.5-0 for the Northeastern Coastal Conference is impressive, and maybe in week 2, possibility another undefeated week for the conference with a chip on its shoulder.
Absolutely, and Bertie jumps into the fold this week.
Yeah, Bertie gets to play now.
Yes.
Bye week, the first week.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do about that? Like, man, these practices have been tough. I gotta have a bye week. Boy, that scrimmage took a lot out of us. We need to work on a lot of things. So I think this bye week comes at a great time. How do you spin it? Is my point.
Right.
As a coach, you're trying to spin it to make it sound good, and you really can't. So. Well, Chris, thanks for joining us. First ever caller.
Very nice.
On the NENC Sports Radio Show. NENC Twitter shouts. They're on the way when we come back.
You can listen to Owen and Malcolm on YouTube. Hear your favorite shows and segments on demand with the WRVS 89.9 YouTube channel.
WRVS 89.9, your community voice with Champion Cuts Barbershop and the Elizabeth City Police Department kick off the new school year with the Back to School Bash and Food Drive this Sunday, August 28th. Barbers from the community will give haircuts to kids beginning at 10 a.m. Bring the entire family out to Robux Stadium to enjoy food, music, and activities beginning at 2 p.m. Plus, free school supplies will be available for the youth while supplies last.
There are a lot of parents that's less fortunate that are not able to afford haircuts or school supplies. So I just think it's a wonderful idea, and I'm thanking the community for everyone because of this.
Don't miss the Back to School Bash and Food Drive this Sunday. Learn more at 252-384-3622 and online at ecsu.edu/WRVS.
This is John Wheeler, head football coach of the Currituck County Knights, and you're listening to NENC Sports Radio Show on WRVS 89.9.
Okay. Already did some shouting. Let's let someone else do some shouting from Twitter.
NENC Twitter shouts.
We got this Twitter shout from David Lawson. Of course, he's the offensive line coach at Northeastern. He's at Lumpy68. A dear friend of ours. Been on the show before as well. This is what he had to say. At TWC Sports NCSC. Why can't you ever have any coverage of any NC Sports on Friday Night Final, the show that Time Warner Cable puts on? And hashtag Bermuda Triangle, hashtag Aces, hashtag Eagles, hashtag Bears, hashtag Panthers. Gaddis, we're kind of used to this, I guess, right? The lack of coverage from TV media, if it's not the Virginia market. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we, just up in our area, obviously I live west of Hertford County, about 15 miles, live about 20 miles from Grand Rapids. And, the schools up in this area, we're in the same boat. Very rarely, Roanoke Rapids may get some Raleigh coverage occasionally, but Northampton, Bert T will catch some out of the WITN, WNCT down in Greenville, Washington. But I mean, it's pretty much a dead zone for TV stations in this area, and it's really sad because our kids deserve the same type of coverage other kids in the state do. But I guarantee you, if we have a big catastrophe or something like that happens here, and we have a major explosion at a facility or something, those cameras will come calling, I promise you.
We encourage all of you, of course, to tweet about NENC Sports. Yours might get put on the air. Just post your thoughts or questions. We'll try to answer them. Use the hashtag NENC Sports. Now it's predictions.
NENC Picks of the Week.
We're going to get an easy one here. Manio at Jacksonville. Why in the hell Manio picked Jacksonville to play in this non-conference series? I got no idea. This could be bad and bad in a hurry. Jacksonville.
I'm going to go with Jacksonville.
I'll take Jacksonville. I'll make it unanimous.
Yeah. Wilson Hunt at Hertford County. Now, Hunt got blasted last week, if I remember correctly. And
the Lumberton.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, and Lumberton's never come across as necessarily a power. So I was a little surprised by that score. And of course, Hertford County coming off the win against Gates. It's in a Hosky. I'm going to give Hertford County an edge here. I really am. Welcome.
I'm going to go with Hertford County. Last year when Wilson Hunt was here against Northeastern, the coach at the time at Hunt said that this was the best defense that he had in his time there at Wilson Hunt. And with a lot of those guys moving on, you got to think Hertford County. They got a D1 receiver. You got to go with the Bears with this one.
Mm.
I had a really tough time picking this game in the local newspaper here, and I eventually went with Hertford County, but Hunt lost the entire backfield from a year ago. Mm-hmm. They lost that really good linebacking core they had. But here's the real kicker with Wilson Hunt. Steve Hennett, who took over for Randy Raper a few years ago, was a longtime assistant, abruptly announced his retirement in the middle of June. And it's been a real mess from what I can hear from up at Wilson Hunt, with Kevin Byram taking over and trying to restructure this coaching staff. And I think they had 132 yards down at Lumberton. But Hunt always seems to play Hertford County well. But I was kind of disappointed in Hertford County as well. But I'm gonna stay with you guys. I'm gonna take the Bears this week. I think they'll get better. I think there's just too many problems with Hunt right now. But as you guys know, Hunt always has a lot of talent.
Yeah, Aaron Burke says no excuses.
Yeah.
Aaron Burke says, you know what, I can do it. Just give me like 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
So
he backed it up.
Absolutely, of course. A little different situation. Anyway, that leads us into Perquimans at Edenton. Pirates fans, I don't want you to get discouraged after such a great win against South Creek, coming back and pulling that one out. But it'll be a hard one at Edenton. I think the last time Perquimans beat Edenton.
2007.
Right. So it's probably going to be a lot of the same. I got to go with the Aces.
It was a game last year. Obviously, I think Luke Harger got hurt in the first half against Perquimans, and it was a 7-point game in the third quarter there. And again, for the second consecutive week, Perquimans going to be facing a pretty good rushing attack. But just that 1-2 punch for Edenton, I'm going to have to go with the Aces. A little bit closer than previous years.
I got Edenton all the way. I'm like you. Oh, and I don't want to get discouraged at Perquimans people, but I think Edenton's a good football team this year, and they're going to show it again on Friday night.
Northeastern at Northern Nash. Last few years, Northeastern's has made it no doubt against the old Big East Conference rival. Northern Nash still a 3A school. Northern Nash is actually ranked in the News Observer's top 20, top 25 poll, whatever they have. They've expanded their coverage to about 17 counties now. Nash is one of the counties, so that's a little bit of a bright spot now for Northern Nash. They've had a couple of tough years. Northeastern, I still am a little. I don't know what I gathered out of Plymouth. I really don't. And I thought Travion Freshwater, he's going to still be tough to take down, but he just got a couple of short yardage touchdowns. Didn't have to do much else. Some of the guys didn't. Once they got up on Plymouth once again, 14-0, it was like you were just going through the motions. It felt sort of like a scrimmage. And that was awkward as well. And going to Northern Nash, that might make some difference. DeMar Sutton, if he can do a little more in the passing game, you've got players to go to. I think Northeastern's just going to pull it out, though. I mean, they've had no trouble with Northern Nash in the past. It might be a little bit closer in the past couple of years. I'm going to give Northeastern a victory.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Northeastern.
Well, Northern Nash, like you mentioned, seems to be somewhat improved. They held a pretty good Corinth Holders team in check last week. Randy Raper, the head coach, who was very successful with Nutt, thinks this team can be better, especially on the defensive side. Northeastern's are going to go to a place where they call Death Valley.
Mm-hmm.
How many Death Valleys are within the United States, both college and high school? But nonetheless, I like Northeastern. I think Northern Nash going to give them a pretty good tussle, but I like Northeastern to take with a win.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for Northern Nash to make a statement. If that Corinth Holders game can carry them into week 2, it could make it interesting in the third quarter, for sure. Currituck at Camden, the Bird Bowl. Camden's had this, not on lock, but I mean, Camden's had a little bit of an edge here the last couple of years. If you just want to look at scores, and it's very easy to just go ahead and go with Currituck and just end it with that. But I think we know better with these two schools and what Scott Jones is going to do to refocus these guys. And John Wheeler's not taking Camden lightly by any means. He knows better as well, being a former player at Currituck. He knows what this rivalry means, especially this early in the year. But at the same time, you can't overlook Ryan Edwards' performance last week and the poise he's going to have, and that maybe he's got to. We mentioned this during the preseason, even at Media Day. How much is Ryan Edwards going to have to carry on his own shoulders offensively? Is he going to have some help? Well, at least against Manio, he had plenty of help. If he can just get some of that help again this week, I think Currituck wins at Camden.
I'm going to have to go with Currituck. Even last year's game, Marcus Joyner aside, it was still a tight ball game. And, when you're losing guys like Joyner, then Trevor Carr and Ja'Cory Evans, emotional guys, it's going to be interesting to see how Camden bounces back after losing the Pasquotank. Will they be a little bit more, disciplined on defense and slow down, I believe, a wishbone attack for Currituck, correct?
No, they had they used the wishbone formation on the first play.
Okay,
that which is interesting. They did that in memory of Gary Turkey Barco, a longtime supporter of Currituck. Was an assistant coach at one time under Donnie Simpson when they ran the wishbone. So it was their way to honor him on the first play, which I thought was a really cool, classy move by the Knights.
But I'm just gonna have to go with Currituck.
Okay,
I'll go with Currituck as well. I like what Evans is doing there, and I think something we might be overlooking a little bit here is Scott Jones getting this program back like he wants it. Those kids, even though some of them played for him, 2 or 3 years ago, it's still this adjustment, this a coaching change. I think once they get lined out and get on board with each other, I think they'll get better. But I think Currituck's a better football team right now.
Pasquotank at Gates, you've got to think that Chris McGee is going to take that momentum with these guys to Gates in a game that last year some say Pasquotank got very lucky to win in Elizabeth City. And now going to Gates, Gates having troubles offensively, of course, as we heard. I just don't see I don't see them stopping the Cal twins, Avion James. I got Pasquotank by at least 20.
We'll go with Pasquotank.
I'll take Pasquotank as well. I just think, I'm like you, I think the Cowboy twins are the difference. Those guys are big-time playmakers, and they'll have a speed and a quickness advantage with Gates County. But Gates County gets ahead. They do a pretty good job controlling the football, but I just think Pasquotank's playing well right now, and after the first game, I like them over Gates.
I think Marcus Cal could be on pace 1,500 yards this year rushing. He had close to 300 in the first game, so I'm sure he'll have a couple games that it'll even out to a degree, but I think easily 1,000 and plus. Bertie at Northampton. I mean, first week for Coach Grantley Mazzell and the Falcons playing at Northampton. I really don't know here. With Bertie struggled so much last year, this is kind of, I could go either way. I'm thinking at least with a guy like Corey Cherry in your backfield, you got to think that's going to help Bertie pull this one out. So I'll just be a Northeastern Coastal Conference homer and pick the Falcons.
Well, Owen, before I let you get into much further, I will tell you that Corey Cherry is doubtful for this game.
Oh.
He tweaked.
Can I change my pick?
A couple of weeks ago.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm not sure his availability.
Oh.
I did hear last week that he got banged up a little bit in that scrimmage with North Pitt, and he could be doubtful this week. So that is a huge difference with him not being in the lineup. Plus, they've had some other injuries, but just kind of throwing that out there before you guys kind of walk the plank on your picks.
Northampton by 40.
And he also, I believe, Bertie's bringing in a new quarterback this year. So it's looking pretty tough for Bertie. I'm still sticking with Bertie.
I'm gonna have to switch Northampton now. I'm not trying to be funny. Just Northampton's had a game.
Yeah.
Right. Just everyone in the state has.
Yeah.
I think that this is not a time where you just want to be fresh because we had last week off, so we still no. You wanted to play last week.
Yeah.
So I'll give Northampton, and it's at Northampton. So why not?
Yeah, I like Bertie. I think Brantley's got enthusiasm up over there. Northampton's really young, and they're a team that'll get better as the year goes along. I just think Bertie's, and they were able to get a scrimmage last week against North Pitt, which they did on Thursday night, which kind of helped them out somewhat. But I just think Bertie, I think that enthusiasm's there, and if Cherry is certainly available, he makes a huge difference in that game. But I just think they got too much for me. Here's another thing to watch out. If Northampton, I know you guys, they don't get in your coverage area much, but something interesting to watch for Northampton this year. They are not going to school at the old Northampton East High School this year. They're going back to Gaston and at the old Northampton West High School. However, they're going to practice and play football at Northampton East, so they're going to have to travel, 40 miles round trip every day to practice and to play. That's going to wear on that football team, and I think it can make a difference on them as the year goes on. It's a weird situation here in Northampton County, one that could probably take up the whole show if we got into it, but that's something to kind of keep an eye on.
What is going on in Northampton County to do that? I mean, you've got a field at Northampton West, so I remember. Yeah,
it's in such bad shape. They've got about, from what we've been told, what I've read here, locally in some of the newspapers, they need about $50,000 worth of renovation in a football field.
How did it get that bad?
I'm not sure.
At least have somebody cut the field. I mean but even $50,000, which is a much larger amount than I expected you to say, Gaddis, the traveling back and forth every day and the money you're spending on all that, it might even it out to where you need to just go ahead and fix up the field at your school. And there's a point of pride, too, when you have your football field at your school.
Absolutely.
I mean, ask Miami what that's like.
Yes.
Right, Malcolm? I'm throwing a Florida reference in there.
You're right. I mean, they've been at the Orange Bowl, and, they've lost that in, I think, the late 2000s. And then now they're at the Dolphin Stadium, and it just doesn't have that same feel.
No. I mean, you're lucky to have, 1,000 people there.
Yes.
This looks like it's cavernous. Nobody's around. Mm-hmm. On a much, much smaller level here with Northampton, but you can't play at your own school. Wow, that's going to really that'll show in a few more weeks for certain. Columbia at Crestwell. I mean, Columbia losing the Man Mesquite, I didn't necessarily see that coming. And both these teams probably don't have no more than about 18 players each. So it's almost like who lives at the end, who's still standing. You know what, though? I'm going to give it to my boy Wayne Rogers. I'm going to give Crestwell a nod. I'm going with the Tigers.
I'm going to go with Columbia.
Okay.
I'm like you. I think I'm going to go with Wayne this time. I love two guys that do a great job at our media conference. Rayshon Spencer and Wayne Rogers. Those guys do a terrific job, and I'm really, really impressed and love listening to both of them. But I'm going to go with the older guy this time. I'm going with Wayne and see if he can get one.
Plymouth at Riverside. Now we're going to see where Plymouth stands this year and what maybe their outlook's going to be in the 1A ranks with a team like Riverside, which Riverside will probably be a 1AA when it comes to the playoffs, but still now a team with a little more similar numbers and probably get a better vantage point of how Plymouth's going to do, again, the rest of the year. And I still have Plymouth as my pick to win the conference. Until they get knocked off, I'm going to make that safe pick, but now we will see. And I tell you what, this is a great opportunity for Riverside to get that victory, and I'm going to give it to the Knights.
Yeah, I'm going to lean with Riverside.
I'm going to go with Plymouth. I'm just going. Somebody's going to have to on that 1A level is going to have to beat them to make me think less of. But Riverside lost a good lineman that's playing at East Carolina, much like Purvis left Plymouth. But something tells me Cody's going to round the troops up, and I think they'll go to Williamston to pick up a win over Riverside.
Arcadia at First Flight. This is a Virginia school. Coach Jim Prince has to go just about everywhere to get non-conference games for some reason. They probably didn't get to see much of what they need to work on or anything else with the Dixon game with the rain and only playing one quarter and that kind of stuff. I'd say just with Virginia having to make a trip down here, I don't even know. I don't even remember what last year's game was between those schools.
I think First Flight won that one.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead with the Fighting Jim Princes.
Yeah, go with First Flight.
First Flight as well. Arcadia, I think, is located up on the eastern shore. Mm-hmm. I got to make the long trip here. I think First Flight won up there a year ago, and this is Arcadia's first game. So okay. Jim Prince has had a quarter and a half with his team.
That's right.
I'll take Prince in this as well.
All right. Well, other sporting events, of course, this past week. Soccer, Manteo 3, Edenton 2. Camden tied Northeastern 2-2. Austin Byers, one of those great names. 2 goals for Camden to help tie that game. The Bruins 1-0-3. 3 ties for the Bruins in soccer already this year. You're not losing.
Nope.
And it's not a conference. None of these are conference games yet, so something to be said for all that. And Coach Preston Kuno's team. Women's volleyball, 4-1. Won its Coastal 10 conference opener. They beat Manteo in 3 on Monday. Beat Cape Hatteras in 3 on Tuesday. Then played Northeastern Wednesday. Lost 3-1. I tell you, these Lady Eagles probably a little upset after last year losing that Northeastern Coastal Conference title. Mm-hmm. Had to come one day or another, and Currituck had a great team. But now they are back. A lot of players back for the Lady Eagles. Brand new coach. Jessica, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that last name. Miss Jessica. But used to play at Currituck, was a former volleyball player there herself, now coaching at Northeastern. Won that one in 4. Taylor Jones with 27 assists for the Lady Eagles. Big time there. Of course, Macy Keaton, 9 kills, 12 blocks. Kelsey Pierce, 8 kills, 4 blocks. Abby White, 10 digs at the libero position. Maury Carver, 11 blocks, 6 kills. Northeastern beat the pants off Camden. Did the same thing to Broquemins. A couple years ago, we would have said, okay, that happens each year. I don't see why we're talking a whole lot about it. Well, last couple of years, it hasn't happened. Broquemins and Camden, for the most part, has gotten the better of Northeastern. So early on, looking good for the Lady Eagles. And also girls tennis, Northeastern swept Gates. Only dropped 4 games, I believe, out of the 6 singles and 3 doubles matches played in the pro set format. And Claire Foreman in the group doing pretty well so far. Edenton topped Currituck 6-3. That gives the Lady Aces a leg up on the girls tennis Northeastern Coastal Conference title. But, of course, there's First Flight always there, and usually they have a big say about that and have won their share of league titles when it comes to girls tennis. Now we can close it up. And, of course, remember to follow us on Twitter at NENC Sports, ONOBX,
Malcolm_Shields.
Gaddis, you also have Twitter.
Gadmo,
That's right.
G-A-D-M-O.
For the latest sports updates, as well as pick up a copy of the Daily Advance newspaper. If we go beyond our radio time, check the YouTube channel. I need to mention this. Maybe I have once already, but just put a search in for NENC Sports Radio Show. You'll find it, or WRVS. We got that thing going. A lot of people seem to like that. So YouTube channel it is for this show. You might be listening on that right now. So for Owen Hassel, Malcolm Shields, Gaddis Hodges, Clay Mercer, Randy Jones, so many that make this show possible, it's the NENC. And don't you see,
Athletes live here.
NENC Sports Radio Show is produced at the WRVS-FM studios on the campus of Elizabeth City State University.